welcome to the RIE Mentor Series. My name is Kelly Scott, and I am honored to bring to you 4 RIE mentors. These 4 RIE associates all studied extensively with RIE's founder, Magda Gerber, during their training, and have been mentoring other associates, early child care professionals, and parents for over 30 years. They are an extraordinary group of thinkers, teachers, and parent educators, and each brings their own unique perspective to our conversation surrounding struggle that I'm grateful to be able to share with you. Today, we're going to talk about struggle and the importance of it, or how RIE views it. But first, we're going to start off with a little bit of background on Lee and hear from her about how you first came to RIE, what resonated with you, and just tell us a little bit of background about yourself.
Sure, I'm glad to do that, Kelly. Taking a breath. It's time to take a breath. This day and these days we've had in the past months, and also looking to the future. So my connection with RIE, I first met Magda in 1984, and ever since then, RIE has been a part of my life on a day-to-day basis, because I think it's not just about children, it's about us too. It's about everybody. It's a point of view, kind of an attitude towards living and an attitude towards caring for those who are close to us, whether they're family or maybe children that are in our care, or maybe other adults that we have contact with. So I came to RIE in '84. I was already a trained Montessori teacher. I already had 3 children who were grade school aged, and I was living in Mobile, Alabama, and I went to New Orleans to a conference, NAEYC, National Association for the Education of Young Children, and Magda had a workshop, and I was enthralled. There were hundreds of people there, and also families, and Magda just zoomed right in on the babies, and it was that missing piece for me with Montessori, because Montessori really started with older toddlers, possibly, but mainly preschool and grade school children, as Maria Montessori was working in Rome at her infant house, and it was for the children in the neighborhood. But I always felt the infant portion was missing, and here it was, just ready for me. So I was able to eventually go to study and get my master's degree and work with Magda in the late 80s, became a RIE Associate in 1987. Then I went to work for military childcare out in California. I already had family childcare going in Alabama, and I had worked for a university there running a childcare program for campus. And then when I came out to California, I was working first for the Navy and then for the Air Force, running childcare programs for hundreds and hundreds of families of all ages, from 0 to 18. We had all the programs you could think of that would enhance a family, but also I was able to use RIE to help train the caregivers for the preschool daycare programs, family childcare as well. So I had a lot of experience with a lot of different kinds of families. And when I retired from the Air Force in 2008, then I started just doing the parent-infant guidance classes. I'd been doing them for a while, part-time, but then I began to do more of them. So I was teaching 7 classes a week up until 3 months ago.
Oh my goodness.
Infants and toddlers, and in San Francisco, Redwood City, and Palo Alto. And I love doing that. So I'm hoping to go back to it as soon as COVID allows that, which I'm hoping will be soon.
Could you speak a little bit about how RIE sees, or what you saw was different about what Magda was talking about how infants and toddlers are viewed differently?
So really key to it is the observation and seeing that development that's happening in those first few years. A lot of it is coming from inside. It's not something we pour into a child. It's what we can see and allow by providing the right environment, and also an emotional environment where we are willing for our child to bloom in front of us, to see what's happening, to be positive about it, rather than feeling like we have to make them do that next thing.
Mm.
that openness to allow the child to progress, to develop at their own pace and in their own way. And every child is unique and different.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to know that. And of course, when we're caregivers, we see patterns. And of course, there are patterns. But at the same time, every child is unique and different. So both things are going on.
It
A
can be hard
pattern
to
and
remember
uniqueness.
that. Yeah, I think that it's very true in a childcare setting. You can learn that you observe it quickly, but as a parent, it can sometimes be hard to remember it. Um, but professionals perhaps might too. And do you think that there are things that RIE does that helps people remember to see the child as an individual? Or
Yes. Yeah, I do. The idea to slow down,
mm,
taking the time, because children are slower than we are to pick things up, but in the way that they do things, it takes them time. They have so much, they need so much opportunity for repetition, trial and error, failure and success, to do that and attempt that same thing many times and then get it and then move on. Because we do see that so clearly. You'll see that a parent with their own child will see how when their child has mastered that new skill, now they just know it. They don't have to think about it and they move on.
right. Do you have a favorite Magda quote?
Well, I do. I have a couple of them, but one of them is what is essential is to observe. Get to know your child. If you really recognize what your child needs, if you feel what is causing him grief, feel what she needs, then you will respond in the right way. You will guide and bring up your child well. Now that's from Emmy Pickler, who was Magda's mentor and teacher. And then Magda, let's see, looking for the Magda quote that I want. When you hold an infant, hold him or her not just with your body, but with your mind and your heart. So there is a connection, and it's physical and it's emotional, and both things happen. And then always what Magda used to say, allow infants to do what they can do. A lot of times in my parent-infant classes, parents are just amazed at what their child can do.
Yes.
Yeah. And especially in the toddler classes, because then there's so much interaction between the children, and the parents are quite surprised to see how well that goes. Toddlers easily learn to navigate around one another and with each other.
Yes, I'm going to have that segue right into our broader topic, because I think that is something that people really learn in a RIE parent-infant class, is this idea of sometimes as a grown-up, we assume there's going to be a struggle, or assume there's going to be an issue where a child ends up illustrating quite beautifully how capable they are. So can we talk a little bit about just how RIE has taught you that lens sort of how to look at struggle, or how to
seeing infants with new eyes, which was Magda's title for one of her videos. Yeah, so it's part of it is about that ability to wait just a little bit longer, so that we can allow the child to go forward, to do what they're going to do next. Of course, safety is the bottom issue. So you always want to be sure that you're close enough. And I'm talking now about young infants and maybe even young toddlers. So you're close enough in case the child takes a misstep that's going to cause some kind of injury that we don't want to have happen. But if we can be close and yet not overbearing and overwhelming. And it's also not just our actions and maybe our jerky responses, because sometimes, we have that moment and the child gets it. They feel it too. But it's also about our inner feeling, to try to calm ourselves enough and to feel that I want to see what can happen next, rather than I'm worried about what's going to happen next. To try to have within yourself the comfort that we can trust our child. And trust goes two ways. So we're trusting our child to do that next thing and to be as careful as they can, although they're going to get off balance. We know that. But also trusting ourselves to be the perfect parent, because we are. You don't have to try to be perfect. It's who you are. That's the parent that your child needs. And then also your child learning to trust you. So there's a lot of different ways that trust is going on. And that's another thing Magda talked about a lot.
A mom in a class that I had once, I remember that she would talk about the fact that she was trying to trust. That would be her self-talk. She wasn't quite ready to say that I trust, but she'd say into herself, I'm trying to trust right now that you're not going to fall. I'm trying to trust right now that you're not going to fall. While she worked on getting that trust, because at first she didn't really have it, so she had to work her way up. But it is
a new parent, a first-time parent. Yeah. We don't trust yet. We're not sure what's going to happen. It's a little easier when you've had one child and now you're on your second child. Yeah. Because you have more of a sense that you can make your way through it. So you trust yourself more the second time around.
Right. The trusting yourself part is really, really key, I think, is that you have to give yourself the grace to trust yourself before you can give that trust to someone else. But I think that is a beautiful thing that RIE teaches in the parent classes, is that, and when you work with a mentor, even as a RIE student, is that learning to trust yourself, trust the child, and not anticipate a struggle or anticipate the next wrong thing, a fall or a slip, or that's going to be dangerous, or be careful. That you learn to slow down and stay in the moment without leaping to the next thing.
And sometimes it's just using words. Just saying something like, I see you, you're right there. Oh yes, you're on the edge. Something like that. Or I often say, hold on.
Oh, okay.
So the child is on the slide, climbing or standing, and I just say, hold on.
Yeah.
Sometimes our words are enough, and often that just diffuses whatever's going on. So just saying the words that describe what's happening. Oh, the ball rolled away. Just giving those words that let the child know you noticed, you're present, you're watching, you're engaged, and at the same time, giving them words for what's happening, vocabulary. And at the same time, it's a comfort to know, yeah, that's what's supposed to happen. Yeah.
Right now, more than ever, I think that parents are in the midst of a big struggle. Many parents are struggling in a myriad of ways. And I think that for a lot of people, the core crux of their question is like, how are we going to be okay? Are our children going to be okay? How do we make sure they're going to be okay? And how, what do you say to those parents, or how do we help?
Well, you talked about struggle early on too, and struggle is essential. Struggle is how we learn. We try, and then we finally get it, and we have success. But before we have success, usually there's some failure, there's some struggle, there's some attempts that don't work out. So you see children often trying different ways. But that's a different kind of struggle, I think, than what we're going through now with the situations that we have where we're living at home in a way that we weren't before, where we have fears and concerns and we're worried, are those being transmitted to our child? Is that going to make our child fearful and concerned? And I say, you do need to be honest with your child and give them some sense of how you're feeling, but you don't have to go into big detail.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm upset today. There's a lot of noise outside and I don't like it. You could say that. And maybe at the same time, you're scooping your child and holding them close and saying, I really feel like I want to hold you close today. That makes me feel better. And I'm hoping it makes you feel better too. So to communicate some of your feeling, but you don't have to go into big detail about what's upsetting you. It's going to be very confusing to your child if you try to go in detail about COVID or about demonstrations that are happening, whatever it might be that's close to you, or something you see on TV, because you may be glued to your TV and the child is seeing it too and may be upset by it.
Right.
So think about communicating with your child and also comforting at the same time, knowing you're comforting yourself and your child, both of you.
Would
and
you?
That's a good thing to do.
Yes. Would you admit that you were worried?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I wouldn't go into huge, long detail, but I would say, oh, I'm worried about what's happening out there. I hear glass breaking. That doesn't sound good. Or I'm worried about grandma. I don't want her to get sick. So let's be really careful.
Right.
Let's wash our hands more, or whatever it is that you're doing. Let's use Skype. Let's Skype with grandma since we can't go see her. So think of the ways we can still connect. And obviously with this virtual connection, that really does help. It's not the same thing, but yeah, it does help. And then think of having a lot of physical contact with your child, because they're not having the usual physical contact they have with others. Yeah.
How, another thing that's happening for a lot of people right now is that there's a lot of different people in a house that maybe went and did their own thing for the day, and everyone got their needs met by going to work or going to school or going to childcare, and now everyone is in the same space trying to get things done. How, and that's a struggle. How do we get everyone's needs met, or embrace that kind of struggle where it feels like you're being pulled in a lot of directions, but you can't, it doesn't feel like you've got enough to give?
So hopefully there's more than one adult, so that you can do maybe some tag teaming where you take turns meeting needs of the child. It's also an ideal time to talk about respect. So if it's an older child or a older toddler, preschooler, grade schooler, teenager, let's talk about, I'm respecting you and allowing you to have some time to do the things you need to do, but I need some respect from you also, so that I can do the things that I need to do. You know, RIE is not all about it's all the child's way. Really, RIE is about that there's mutual respect and there's mutual need. So sometimes, no, I won't let you do that thing that you want to do because we have to do something else, or because it's hurtful to someone. I'm not going to allow that. That's something people sometimes don't understand about RIE. It's about helping a child to become a person who is a joy to be with.
Right.
That would be a person who there's give and take.
Yes.
Yeah. There's excitement and curiosity and wanting to do it my way. And there's also time when, I have to wait.
Yeah.
That word wait.
I joke with my 6-year-old that no one likes to live in tyranny. It's not fun for either of us.
Yeah.
If only one person's getting their way, that's not a lot of fun.
But let's go back to this living situation where maybe there are people crammed together who aren't usually living together, because that might be happening. And maybe there's different points of view about childcare and how to interact with children. And I think that there's going to be volatility. It's going to be a hard thing. And yes, as an adult, we do have to step up and take responsibility and say, I can't have it my way maybe as much as I want. I'm trying to make this situation work for the short term. And it is short term, it's not long term. So that's something else to be thinking about. Things will change. It will be a different, quote, different normal, as people say, but it's not going to be like it is right now for much longer. It is going to change. Yeah. And I'm glad to hear that there are people who are able to have their children in school or childcare, although I'm not sure how safe that is yet in some places. So I know that it's different in different places. And I just say the smaller the group, the better at this time.
If you touched on it, and I think it's an interesting thing to talk about, is if you are in a living situation where there are, or in sometimes in marriages, even in partnerships, you don't quite see eye to eye, and that's a
Yeah.
struggle of like how one person wants to do it one way and the other person is, and how would you, can you talk about that a little? Like, what does one
Yeah.
do if you've got an idea and somebody else's, you feel like it's a very different, maybe even you feel like it's not appropriate? How do you
Mhm.
find that middle ground?
Yeah, maybe it's multi-generational.
Mm,
That's often where we come
yeah,
into a real conflict as to how we should treat our children, how we should raise them,
yeah,
especially discipline that comes in.
yes.
I had that happen when I was actually studying with Magda because I came out to California and lived with my parents and had two of my kids with me who were both, one was in high school and one was in grade school.
Mm,
So we came across quite a bit there of
yeah.
conflict about how to raise the children and so on. And so I say that you do stand with your principle and you say, I want it to be this way, not that way. But
Mm,
then you also say to another person, let's watch and see what happens. Can you sit with me and let's see what they're doing, what they can do?
mm,
Because many times we'll come across maybe a grandparent who's very clingy and wants to control the child and walk them and
mm,
have them do things a certain way. And if you can help that person just sit with you and watch to see
mm,
what does my child do on their own,
mm,
and then creating a space where it's safe for your child to be, that is essential. And it may be harder to do when we have more people living together, but you really do need to find that one space in the house where your child can have freedom of movement. That may help a situation where a grandparent or another or the other parent wants things to be a certain way or is
mm.
perhaps afraid of what might happen with the child. So creating that safe space, having a parent, having the other person sit with you together. Let's watch and see what happens and talk about it. Rather than just giving them instructions and telling them how it should be, let's watch the child. Let's see what's happening. What do you see?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But you have your principles and you're saying, I don't think it's a good idea to force feed him.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
would rather have him pick up the food. He's learning how to feed himself. Or I don't feel it's necessary to give him that extra spoonful. When he closes his mouth, he's finished. He's full.
Yes. What if it was a situation where, like, what if I'm thinking about maybe more than one family, like maybe a couple of families have started
Mhm.
to kind of work together to get everyone's needs met. So you've got a couple of parents, um, and maybe they're not telling your child, like they're respecting a boundary of not telling your child necessarily how they want things to do, but they're with their own child doing something that you wouldn't do. Do you stand with the principal there, or do you think that you would handle that slightly differently?
So I've had that situation too because I shared a ranch with another family.
Okay.
I had two children and they did too. We each had a boy and a girl, and we lived together for a part of 2 years.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, it's not easy.
Yes. Yeah.
But I'd say there, it's really the parent who decides. So
Mhm.
we don't interfere with that parent.
Right.
Yes, you can say, you can do it differently yourself with your own child and ask that they do what you want with your child, but with their child, really, they're in charge. Of course, we're not talking about abuse or anything like that. We're just
Yeah.
talking about different parenting styles.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah, it's not helpful if you start constantly criticizing or um, being so negative that then the other person becomes defensive. And then there's no way they can listen and see that there's another way, there's a possibility.
Mm-hmm. Did you find with the parents, the other family that you lived with, did you find, because I hear this a lot in parent classes, they'll talk about how just modeling really helps other,
Mhm.
they'll say, I I didn't say anything. And then they started to do it the same way, because I saw that, and when I asked, they said, oh, well, it's because it clearly worked. So I just started to do what you were doing. Did you find that to be true? Did you find that to?
Yes. And I have to say, at that time, I didn't know about RIE.
Oh.
I hadn't yet met Magda. So,
Okay.
so that was just my experience that, yeah, conflict happens when you have two different families and we're going at it two different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay for people to do it differently. Another quote I really like from Magda, which she said to me in class, was, RIE is not for everyone.
Mm.
And that is true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That, when you say that, sometimes I think, like for me, I think, well, respecting is for everybody. Like everybody wants respect, and everybody, every child deserves that, in my opinion. But what do you think she meant by that, in terms of, like, do you think that she thought it, she certainly didn't think that not all children deserve respect. I mean, but what do you think she
No,
meant by that?
no, I think she meant by that there are parents for whom the ideas that RIE promotes really are incompatible with their personality or their desires for their child.
Got it. Yeah.
And that we respect that. Someone can have a whole different point of view about what they want to do.
Right. You can take what you like and
yeah, it's not that she's saying that any child would not be helped by RIE, because I think any child could and would.
Yeah.
But that for some families, it's not what they want.
Mm.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm wondering about, I'm going to go back to kind of struggle a little bit more, and more about because I think this comes up sometimes in parent-infant classes, just the one parent wants one thing and another parent wants another thing. And I'm not even sure I know of an example yet, but sometimes I don't know if it always feels like you can offer the child as the example. I mean, I think you're right. I think it's a great idea to look to the child and observe the child, and the answer will come. But are there ways that that you could talk about, or are these things that come up in RIE classes sometimes, that parents talk about a struggle with trying to get another parent on board?
Yes. And so there's some reading, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe a video. Maybe they can watch a video now. We're using virtual so much. So there's plenty of videos online from RIE that are, like Janet Lansbury has some great clips. Those kinds of things might be helpful. Mm-hmm. And I invite both parents to come to class. And I would really say, if there's a parent who's just thinks this is not what they want at all, this is crazy, please come to class at least one time, see what happens here. Maybe that will help. So yeah. And sometimes it's just a conflict between the two partners, and it kind of spills over into the child caregiving. So
I can see that.
Yeah. So we're not into, quote, marriage counseling or anything.
Sure.
Or relationship. But sometimes it comes up, definitely. And I just say, talk about it a little bit, not too much, maybe some reading, maybe videos, and invite that person to come to a class. Of course, at this time, that may be hard to do.
Might be.
Hopefully, pretty soon it won't be.
Right. And there is really something magical in the classes about seeing this, what could be perceived as a struggle between two children, and how they are so capable of problem solving that amongst themselves, or how we as an adult, we can see our inclination to assume the struggle, and then it's just not one. Yeah. Do you have some examples you could share of kind of some of those moments in classes between the children?
Well, typically the slide, I have a small wooden slide and a great big wooden slide. The small slide is typically the place where there's a struggle because someone's going down and someone wants to come up. And a parent wants to rush over and tell the child, move out of the way. It's my child's turn or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do talk to the children about taking turns, but I do it just in a very normal kind of voice without judgment. Just, oh, she's coming up the slide. I need you to wait. And I might put my hand there. And so I might use my hand, just not even touching the child, but just as a slight barrier,
Mm-hmm.
and just say, oh, she's coming up the slide now. Oh, and now she's going back down. Now it's your turn.
Mm.
That child has a turn. So talking about waiting, which is very hard to learn, but it's something we all have to learn. And also talking about taking turns.
Mm-hmm.
And then being sure if you ever offer a turn, it's your turn to have a piece of apple now.
Mm.
And offer the plate. Be sure they have a turn. You know, if you offer a turn, be sure they get that turn. They get that opportunity. So maybe it's something like you're inside and you don't want to play with football inside.
Mm-hmm.
They might break. And you say to your child, as soon as snack is over or after your nap or whenever it's going to work out for you, you say, now then we'll go outside and play ball and you can throw it as much as you want. Then we go out. So, you know, picking appropriate places for things to happen,
Mm-hmm.
letting your child know where that place is, and then being sure that they have that opportunity. And I think hallways are a great place to play inside.
Yes. Yeah.
Because we can throw things. Usually there's not much, no lamps,
Mm-hmm.
things that could get broken. And I also say inside kind of games are important to do when we can't go outside.
Yeah.
So winding up newspaper and throwing it around, bowling, you know, throwing in hallways, things like that.
Bowling on stairs is really fun.
Oh yeah! Wow.
With a big ball.
Jumping on the bed.
Yes. We have a really dark hallway that makes for really fun with glow in the dark.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Goes in there and flashlights.
I love that Polly Elam once told a story about jumping on the bed with her grandkids.
Yeah.
I think it was in a hotel room.
I think so. I've heard that story. Yeah. Because, you know, there's a time and place for most things.
Yeah. So I say that you pick the time, you pick the place, and your child decides when they want to do it, if they do.
If they do it, okay.
Yeah. I say the same thing about eating. You pick the food, you pick what's nutritious, you pick the time and place eating's going to happen, but your child allows what will go in their mouth or not.
Mm-hmm.
They get to decide whether they will eat or not eat.
So only offering things that you want them to eat, not
if you
offering.
Can.
Right, if you can. Yeah.
There might be somebody in the family who wants to give them a donut all the time.
Yeah.
And you know, a donut once in a while is going to be okay.
Yeah. Or a donut to finish. If you finish your carrots, you can have a donut. Would you?
I wouldn't say that.
No, I know. I was just going to clarify. I was like, I was meaning that as a bad example of like.
Oh, okay.
Just, I mean, thinking in my own life of like what grandparents will do. You know.
I wouldn't make a treat any less important than regular food or more important. I would have them be equal.
Yeah. Because then you can start struggling over food. Which is, you know, another area of struggle with a lot of parents, though, because there aren't very many things children can control, and certainly that's one thing they can if they're feeling out of control.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to trust your child. If they're hungry, they will eat.
Mm-hmm.
So if they don't want to eat it at this meal, that's okay. At the next meal, they're going to eat more or differently.
Yeah. It's back to the trust again. Which is, I mean, it's hard. It's hard to learn how to trust that they are as capable as they are. I think it can be a hard thing.
They're capable human beings at their level of development.
Mm-hmm.
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
So we are the caretakers for so many years, but then during that time, the child is developing their own ability to do all the things that we can do in such a short time.
Hmm. I think sometimes that is a struggle for parents, is that sometimes we have an internal struggle of kind of overestimating in some areas what children can do and then underestimating them in other times, and having to learn, which I think is a really beautiful thing that I certainly learned in RIE training, is to find that really, to come kind of to center of not, of knowing what is age appropriate and what's a fair expectation, or really knowing where that child is, and then also not underestimating what they can do, and kind of rescuing or assuming there's going to be an issue where there's not.
And that's why observation is so, so important. Because of course we will over and underestimate, not know exactly what our child can do, but watching and seeing what happens, that gives us the clue, but also to know that they're becoming more competent. So I'm sorry if you hear my dog barking, but that's what's happening.
There aren't kids knocking at the door.
Yeah, so if we are trying to do for our child too much, then we are actually preventing them from having that opportunity to learn how to do it, to teach themselves how to do it themselves. So many times we want to do for our child, but again, that waiting and holding back a little bit can help, because then your child has that opportunity. We want them to have opportunity to do whatever.
If you're just coming to this idea of observation, or seeing your child with new eyes, how would you start that? Do you just start and baby steps forward, giving yourself grace with your own readiness to learn, or are there some building blocks you could use?
I think it's really a good idea to take the foundations course and to maybe read and maybe see some things online that help you get some of the ideas that Magda had. Her book, Dear Parent, I love that one because it's short chapters that are really quick and easy to read. Janet Lansbury has a couple of good books, and of course the RIE manual. But to get a little bit of foundation first, don't feel like you just have to jump right in, but try to get a sense of it and see, is this compatible with what I would like for my child and myself? Is this the kind of relationship I want to build? And then to, yes, give yourself some time to just quietly be with your child, to see what's going on with them, and to let them feel your presence and your interest. Many times children are trying to get our attention and we are distracted and busy doing other things. It's fine for us to have other things to do, but try to spend some time every day just being with your child and being open to who they are and watching to see what are they doing now, because things change so rapidly with babies and toddlers. And to keep in touch with what they are doing and able to do, we really have to spend that bit of time every day. Just kind of, it's almost meditative. It's like to be present. And your baby feels your presence. They feel that you are with them, that you want to be with them. So remember, that's important too. It's not a job, a chore. This is, I want to be with you. I want to be open to you as this new human being in the world.
Yeah.
We are teaching our babies how to be human. So the way that we act with them is absorbed by them, and that becomes part of the way they become with the world.
Yeah. I think
we're teaching ourselves,
I think that's so beautiful. I think you're right. I think that we're teaching our babies and children how to be human, and in so doing, we're teaching ourselves. I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, so I mean that in two ways. We're teaching ourselves to our child, and we're teaching ourselves through our child. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just the trust going in many different directions that teaching part does too, that openness.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for talking today. It was really wonderful to get a chance to speak with you and hear about what your guidance and your all your expertise on these things that are challenging right now. I appreciate it. And I hope you get a chance to get back to your classes soon, and that people, if you will reach out to you, we'll make sure that there's a link so people know how to get in touch with you. And that,
Let me say a couple things. I
yeah,
didn't get to really talk about people who are in the childcare profession.
yeah.
Just to say that I do think it's very valuable for them to learn a little bit about RIE and to use that. As I mentioned before, you know, we see the patterns when we're in childcare. We have expectations about what will happen next, but to also spend a little time each day observing children and even making notes about it, because that's something to share with parents and other caregivers, but to be aware of what this particular child, this unique child, is doing, what they are needing at this time. And of course, now with childcare, again, small groups, that's really important right now. So it's important for connection between adult and child, but it's also just important because of the health issues that we have right now.
Yeah.
And then let me just read one more quote from Magda that I have a wish for parents. I loved this, that it was in the RIE manual. I wish parents would feel secure but not rigid. I wish they would be accepting but set limits. Be available but not intruding. I wish parents would be patient, but I wish parents could arrive at a balance between giving quality time to their children and themselves. I wish parents could resist new fads and the pressures to buy elaborate and expensive products which babies do not need. And above all else, I wish that we each don't lose sight of laughter.
Oh.
I love some of the videos that I see now of families, you know, doing things at home, and I see these crazy antics going on, and it's wonderful. I mean, that laughter is just so necessary, and it makes us feel good, and it makes the kids feel good.
Yeah, that's true. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it, and so thank you.
Well, I'm lucky to be here in Half Moon Bay and have my vegetable garden and a few friends and family that are living close by. And I haven't been in my car to drive in 3 months. Unbelievable.
Lovely.
If it's been 3 months anyway, since March 11th, the last day I taught.
Oh, that's lovely. Oh, well, it looks gorgeous.
Forward to getting out, just like everybody else.